Okay, so before I start, I want to first, just for a second, dedicate this class to my grandpa Richie because, well, for many reasons, but it's his 11-year yahrzeit today. So it just, it just coincided with the day I'm giving a class. So I wanted to give it in his memory. The topic of this class we're going to talk about tonight is Yom Yerushalayim, a day of unity and hope. So basically, what I want to do today in this class is a little bit of a different style than what we usually do, but the same sort of thematically. Is I want to look at the Midot of unity and hope. Obviously with examples from Tanach and Hachamim and all that, but I want to sort of frame it with the themes of Yom Yerushalayim, because I think today is Yom Yerushalayim, and I think it's very important to acknowledge that. And in regards to my grandpa and his 11-year yahrzeit, and he was someone who had many positive characteristics, and one of them being someone who really wanted to avoid conflict and always wanted to create unity in the relationship with the people around him and all his relationships. So he really would always try to help people and look for the best and try to find ways to avoid conflict and unite people. So that's something that I want to learn from him, and we'll talk about those ideas tonight. Another thing I want to talk about before we start the class, but also is connected to the class, is that within about the last hour, there have been multiple sirens, red rockets falling in Israel. Thank God it has not been where I am right now. I'm in Modi'in. So as of now, hopefully it should stay that way. But there have been many rockets in Yerushalayim and in the south and in a bunch of other places. So I just want to hopefully in the zechut of our learning, everyone should be safe, and all the civilians, all the soldiers protecting us, and we are very thankful for Sal and the Iron Dome and all those that protect us, and Hashem should protect them. So yes, let's start. So what I want to talk about today, hold on. Anyway, I don't know. So we'll start with Yerushalayim, right? Yom Yerushalayim, and it's just interesting to think about that. It's something that we don't necessarily. I mean, I don't know. Didn't necessarily think about it, but then I was thinking about it today, just in general of the day, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this class, and it's very interesting because we celebrate Yom Yerushalayim, right? And Yom Yerushalayim is a very important day. It's the commemoration and the celebration of the reunification of Jerusalem during the 6-Day War, which is a very amazing thing, right? But however, we don't have a day commemorating when we captured other parts of Israel, right? We have Yom Ha'atzmaut, obviously Independence Day, where we're thankful and happy and celebrate that we have Israel, in general. But then we also have a specific day for Yerushalayim. So, why is that? I want to talk about, like, why did the people, the nation, the government, everyone feel like that's needed, and in connection to that question, is what is so special about Jerusalem that in general that leads to all this, that leads to us needing to reunify, needing to connect, and all these things. And through all that, I want to talk about the midot of unity and hope, and how they emerge from the idea of what Yerushalayim stands for. Also, by the way, just interesting to know, whoever has been in Israel on Yerushalayim, has been in Yerushalayim on Yerushalayim, or has seen anything, is they usually do a Rikud Degalim, dance of the flags is translated, that basically tons and tons of people. Oh, actually, I brought some pictures of it. I'll show you. Hold on, share screen. Okay, let me make this bigger. 1 second, and then we can all see. Present. Okay. So here's just a nice picture I found of some soldiers and just regular people, religious people, soldiers, everyone dancing by the Kotel when it was captured. And here, I mean, I don't know exactly when this was taken, but this is obviously in the last, few years, modern times, of Rikud de Galim, where where people basically gather in Yerushalayim, walk through the streets of the old city, walk through all the way down to the hotel with flags and singing, and it's really, really beautiful. I did it a couple times in my life. A really amazing experience for anyone who's here on Yerushalayim. I definitely recommend being part of that. I actually just saw a video that someone posted that while the celebration was going on at the hotel and sirens went off and they gathered everyone to the tunnels to be to be safe in the tunnels, and they just kept on singing and kept on dancing no matter what. So it's just a really beautiful thing of which we'll talk about, our hope and our perseverance for Yerushalayim. Okay, so let's get into it. So I want to look first before we could try to answer any of the things that I posed already. I want to look at something interesting, a question that many Hachamim have talked about of an interesting thing that we notice, and there's a lot of what's the thing we notice is that in all the Chumash, right, in all the Torah itself, the Chamisham Torah, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidad, Devarim, the city Yerushalayim is not mentioned. We have Hamakom Asher Yibchar, the place that God will choose, but we don't have it being specified as Yerushalayim. Later in the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim, Yerushalayim is spoken about many, many times, and we see that it is chosen and the Mikdash is built there and everything. But in the Chumash itself, it does not talk about it. It just says Makom Asher Yibchar. And there are many, many different sources and rabbis and explanations for this. I wanted to bring a couple of them to let us think about today. And so I'll bring a few of them. The first being is that if it was known during the time of the Torah, which was pre-entering Eretz Yisrael, right? Because chronologically, the Chamisham Torah ends with Moshe's death, right? As they're about to enter the land, but they haven't entered yet. So if it would have been told then where the Makom Asher Yibchar was, the Hachamim say that it would have created a lot of dysfunction and fighting in the nation, because they would all want that place to be in their nachala, in their territory. So it wasn't told so that they wouldn't fight over it. Another thing was that it's to keep the unity of the nation, is that we don't establish it until there is a king. So until the time of, not even a king, but the unifying king, David, right? Because Shaul fails, but David, until he is king, they don't create Yerushalayim as the center. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Another reason is that this, what the Sifri brings in, is, which I thought was a beautiful point, is that we as the nation don't know the place, but we have to seek it out in order to be a partner with God in choosing the place, because it's the place of our relationship. Okay. And this is where we're going to serve him. So it's like, so to speak, you and your let's say your boyfriend or a fiance or a spouse or even a good friend, you choose a place, a coffee shop, a restaurant, a park, somewhere that you go that's special. You chose it together as a symbol of your relationship, that you go to, connect there and have a anniversary dinner or a celebratory dinner or whatever it may be. That place becomes special because it unifies the two of you. So the Sifri sort of, I'm expanding on that and giving my opinion, my explanation, but that's, I think, what he was going at, is that it's a partnering, not only making sure the nation is unified, that we're not fighting over it, but that we unify with God, and it's part of our relationship. So it's unity on the side of making sure that the nation doesn't fight over it, but it's also unity in the sense of our unity with God. So I think these two ideas sort of springboard the idea of unity and hope, to be a place and a reason why Jerusalem was chosen. The location of Yerushalayim, I couldn't really find a bigger map, so hopefully you could see it's in the center here, the little lavender, if you look at Yehuda, which is big, the orange on the bottom, you see Benjamin, and right there on the border is Yerushalayim. So this is very interesting for a lot of reasons, because if we think about it all the way back, well, we'll go back, we'll work backwards. So if you look at David HaMelech, right? David HaMelech comes after I'm talking about David because he's the first one to establish Yerushalayim as that Makom Asher Yivchad. He establishes it there. He buys the Gordon of Avnai, and he tells his son, this is where you're going to build the Mikdash, right? This is where God wants you to build the Mikdash. So he sort of establishes it. Shaul before him was from Sheva Benyamin, and he didn't establish any centralized location at that point for worshiping God. The Aron was still wandering at that point, so to speak. It was going to different locations, but David establishes it. And if you see, Shaul was from Benjamin and David was from Yehuda. When he became king, part of it was geographically a logistic smart decision because it was uniting the empire, the land, with the people of Benjamin and the people of Yehuda, and the two kingdoms, uniting them essentially. And we see this division of Yehuda and Benjamin, or Yehuda and the rest of the tribes, is something that goes all the way back to Yosef and his brothers, right? To Rachel and Leah. The children of Rachel are Yosef and Benjamin, and the children of Leah are the rest of them, right? Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. And so basically, when Yehuda, if you remember, with the selling of Yosef and then going down to Mitzrayim, Yosef says, I will not give you food until you bring Benjamin. And Yehuda, in order to convince Yaakov to let him bring Benjamin, he tells him, Anochi aravenu miyadi tavakshenu im lo havitav elav v'hatzigtiv lefanecha v'chatati lecha kol hayamim. I'm responsible for him. You ask him from me. If I don't bring him back, I have sinned to you all my days. I'm fully responsible and accountable for Benjamin. And this literally translates all the way through history, because when they divide, when you have the Shaul and David, and then they unite, that goes all the way down to when the kingdom after David and Shlomo, his son Shlomo are king, then his son Yerovam and Rechavam split the Malchut, and Achiyah the Navi comes to Yerovam, and he tells him, he rips his garment. He gives him a nevuah through symbolism of his coat. He rips his garment into 11 pieces, and he says, and he gives him, he's a shevet echad yeh lo leman avdi David. One shevet's going to be for David, uleman Yerushalayim. So you have 10 tribes, and there's going to be one tribe for David and one tribe for Yerushalayim. Meaning there's going to be 2 tribes, one in honor of David, which is Yehuda, and one in honor of Yerushalayim, which is going to be Binyamin. So even when the Malchut is split, Binyamin and Yehuda are connected, stay together, and the other tribes are separate. So there's always this link. And when we bring back the link of all the tribes and all the unity of Yerushalayim, that's what happens in the 6-day war. When we get Yerushalayim, we try to go full circle and reunite it all. So we see that there's this sort of this line of hope, this kav of tikva, that goes through all this relationship of the brothers, of the tribes, of our galut. It's really stemming through to modern times in our breakdown and our then reunification. It all is sort of, I don't want to say actualized or materialized, maybe, so to speak, through Yerushalayim. And it's something that we realize is that it's just it's something interesting, is that maybe you don't pay so much attention to it, but as anyone who has any consciousness of the tefillot and of religious practice, it's always by Yerushalayim, right? I brought the bracha here. We say it, every day in the Amidah, 3 times a day, once a day, however many times you say it, but it's constantly being said and being focused on of Tishkon b'toch Yerushalayim ilcha. God should come and rest into Yerushalayim. He said, David avdecha me'era b'toch hatachin u'bnei ota. So not only should you rest in Yerushalayim, but you should build it. U'bnei ota binyan olam, right? A building for eternity, like a rebuilding of eternity, that it should never, in our days, it should be rebuilt eternally. We say this multiple times a day. We also say every time we eat, right? In Alam Mechiyah, you talk about it, right? We say, U'bnei Yerushalayim ira kodesh, right? That we should build Yerushalayim and be able to go live there. In Birkat Hamazon, we're always asking and longing and hoping for the building of Yerushalayim, the splendor of Yerushalayim to be actualized. We're longing for this, and I didn't even bring. I mean, it would have been too long, but I didn't even bring. If you look at 90% of the mitzvot and the holidays and everything, so much of it has to do with a connection to Yerushalayim and not forgetting Yerushalayim and how to rebuild Yerushalayim. So this is something that we really, it's so integral to our day-to-day religious practice, as even a semi-observant, you know what I'm saying? Not, you know, even if someone's minimally observant, this is constantly in their vernacular, in their minds. And if we realize also, we're not just asking for Yerushalayim, we're asking specifically for a built, sovereign, free Yerushalayim under God, okay? And we see that this is a little bit where the lacking comes in, and the need for the hope and the need for the longing, because we're not there yet. And I mean, today out of any day, you really see that, how there's this balance. Well, I'll say this and then I'll say it. So we see in Nehemiah is an interesting character, because Nehemiah was one of the leaders when they came back from Shushan to Eretz Yisrael. He was one of the leaders, and he says what's going on in Yerushalayim, and he says Sham b'medina b'ra'a gdola, it's in a very bad state. U'becherpa, it's an embarrassing state, right? Everything's destroyed, everything's desolate and destroyed. And v'evchev et avel yamim, and I would cry and mourn. V'yeh besom u'mitpalel l'fnei Elohei Hashamayim, and I was fasting and praying and mourning in front of God. So what Nehemiah is saying here is showing that they were able to go back. They went back. It was Shivat Zion. They went back, but it was the state of Yerushalayim was not the state that it should be. And for that, he was so distraught, and he was so depressed and longing for the true Yerushalayim. And so here, what do we see about this, which is interesting, is that this is Yeshayahu. Yeah, in Yeshayahu, he talks about this is also all destruction, post-destruction, like all. So he talks about the fact that before I say this, I want to say something else. Is that in modern times, Ben Gurion, in the beginning of the with Hakamat Medina in 48 and a little bit after, with the War of Independence and with the 6-Day War and all that. If you look militarily, and I was reading a little bit about it, and I don't want to make this history class, but it was so interesting to me that, first of all, I thought it was so interesting that they named operations after characters in Tanach and situations in Tanach. I always find it so interesting. I'll talk about this more in a little bit, how even the Chiloni, the non-religious, secular, side of Israel is still so linked to the Torah and to our heritage. And it's just so beautiful. So I was reading about different operations. One was called something Nachshon, after Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the first one to jump into Yam Suf, when Kriyat Yam Suf. One was called, I think, Operation. All these different operations, and I mean, I'm not a soldier, obviously, but it was just interesting to read all the military. Like I was reading a little bit up on it, how he was focusing so much soldiers and energy and resources to capture Yerushalayim, because he realized that this was the defining factor. To get Yerushalayim was the defining factor of changing Israel from a place where a lot of Jews live to a place that is the Jewish land and the Jewish nation's homeland. He realized that Yerushalayim is the heart of that, because of this idea of unifying the nation and having being our spark of hope and connection to better days to God. So this is what now I want to talk about Yeshayahu. Was it Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu? I'm totally blanking. Was it Yeshayahu? Yirmiyahu, sorry. Okay, I was just checking my notes. Yirmiyahu, he talks about that at the end of days when there's Geulah, he talks about Kol Sason, the Kol Simcha. I bolded in the middle. Kol Chatan and Kol Kala, right? A lot of you recognize this probably from weddings. The sound of happiness and joy of a groom and a bride. But this is what Yeshayahu says. He ends up with Kol Omrim Hodu et Hashem Sebaot. All those that are praising God. Okay? Ki Tov Hashem, Ki Le'olam Chasto, that God is great. Ki Ashiv et Shevut Haaretz Kebirshona, and God will bring us back and reestablish the land like it was before. So this is what Yirmiyahu says. sorry, I keep switching to Yirmiyahu. But then on the blue side, if you're looking at the screen, the Anshe Knesset Golah, when they were making these tefillot, right, they took the pasuk, they took the words of Yirmiyahu, but they changed them a little bit. So let's look at how they changed them and look why they changed them. So they say, Kol Sason v'Kol Simcha, Kol Chatan v'Kol Kala, right? It starts the same way about, the joy and happiness and the sounds of a bride and the groom. And then it goes to Kol Mitzalot Chatanim Mechupatam, and those that are rejoicing at the wedding festival and making the young men or the people that are at the feast, rejoicing in the feast. So it changes the end of praising God, the idea of praising God and God building the land, to the idea of people praising, being besameach chatan v'kala, being happy with the bride and the groom in their joy, in their happy moment in the feast. So it's interesting. Why did they do this? This is what I'm talking about. The balance here is they thought they could have, that we could look at this pasuk in what Yeshayahu says and say, what he says, and look at it a little bit as in despair, because how could we be so happy if we're not fully rebuilt yet, right? We're not at the land Ashuv et Shvut Ha'aretz Kirei Shana. We're not at that point. So they changed it to say, even if we're not, there's a difference between full galut and full destruction and being fully rebuilt. There is a value and an importance to celebrating the internal process of growth towards rebuilding. And that's why, even though we're not at a fully regrown state, we still are mesameach at happy occasions, chatan and kala, right? At joyous moments, we are happy. We are supposed to be, partying and rejoicing and celebrating. So this was a way, in changing the end of this pasuk and the bracha. This was a way of the Hachamim giving us hope for that state, that even if we're not there yet, we could get there. And obviously, as mostly anyone who's into a wedding knows, we still end the wedding with Imish Kachach Yerushalayim Tishkach Yemini. Right, we end before the ceremony ends. The groom, the chatan, says, "If I forget Yerushalayim, I'll forget my hand." And so that, right, and then he breaks the glass, and we all say "woo," which is so interesting to me, because if you really listen to the pasuk, and I think this is all the mix of emotions of someone in Am Yisrael, and this is why I think the midah I'm talking about of hope is that on the one hand, we're talking about how sad we are and how we can't forget Yerushalayim, but on the other hand, we're saying kol chatan v'kol kala, right, about all the joy we have to have. So there's always this balance of remembering where we need to go and hoping we could get there, but still being happy and joyous in the moment, but never losing sight of where we need to go. Like this balance that we have to maintain as someone in Israel. It's also interesting that a similar theme and a similar vibe is felt on the night we're supposed to be celebrating freedom, right? On Leah said that on Pesach, when we're celebrating our freedom and how God gave us all this freedom and took us out of Mitzrayim, and how happy we are and how we're free people, we still end with L'shana haba Yerushalayim habnuya, right? We end with, even after this whole thing where we're celebrating and we thank God and we're happy that we're free, we end with next year in the rebuilt Jerusalem. And it's not only in Jerusalem, right? Now the Shana Haba Yerushalayim habnuya, the rebuilt Jerusalem. If someone is sitting in Yerushalayim, in the old city, if they're having a seder at the Kotel, I mean, I'm making it up, but no matter where you are, even if you're in the center of Yerushalayim, it's not bnuya the way it should be. So you have to still feel that it needs to be Yerushalayim habnuya. And the Kuzari says that Yerushalayim won't be rebuilt until we yearn and long for it, even the dust of the rocks and its dust and its every part of it, that we yearn for it to be rebuilt. And it's so interesting because I feel, as someone living here, and especially today, especially what's going on in the last hour, you feel this level of balance, of needing to constantly balance this hope and this happiness and this unity and creating unity, creating a connection with all of Am Yisrael, with God, to realizing how far we need to go. And also something interesting, the way all things coincided, is my daughter. She's 4.5. She's in Gan in nursery, and they have this really cute project this year that each kid, they pick a song and they write about why they like the song, and they draw a picture, and they come to class, and they sing the song, and the class sings it with them, and it's like they build it up. It's all exciting. They can be the center of attention. And so today was her day to do it. Oh, excuse me. And she picked this song, a Hebrew song called Shevet Achim, a tribe of brothers. And if anyone knows the song, you can Google it. It's a bunch of Israeli artists that came together to make this song, Israeli singers. It's a really, really nice song. She picked it because it's a fun song and it's nice and it's cute. But if you listen to the words, and I'm not going to play it for you, but I highly recommend going to listen to it. It's a nice song. But it talks about the whole theme of the song. The chorus of the song is Avotenu Shorashim, our fathers, our ancestors are the roots, V'anachnu Apachim, and we're the flowers. And the whole song is talking about the beauty and the unity of Israel. It talks about the Ashkenazi and the Saradi and the religious and the not religious, and how it's all unifying, and we all have to see the beauty in the unification, and we have to look back that we're the children of Yaakov. And it's so interesting to me because you look at the artist in the video and you hear the song, and I think almost all of them are Chiloni, are not religious artists, but like I said before, there's such this connection to needing to unify and connect and realize that we're all Am Yisrael and we're all connected. And this is how we're going to truly rebuild Yerushalayim. So I know I'm going to conclude a little bit in a minute, but I know that this might, this veered a little bit towards from my standard structure of the class, but I just felt like I couldn't not talk about it. But I think that if we look at it in terms of the midot that we learn and that we focus on, and showing that defining midah of someone who's a person in Am Yisrael is someone who is always looking for unity and always looking for hope and always having hope, and even in the darkest moment, right? There's always a way out. There's always a kav of tikva. Like even the national anthem of Eretz Yisrael is Hatikva. It's called the hope, right? That's the national anthem. That's our identity, is one of always having hope, of always looking outwards. And I think that Yerushalayim and the idea of celebrating Yom Yerushalayim, and like I started the class by saying, why do we have this day celebrating Yerushalayim and not celebrating any other city that we captured, is because Yerushalayim is the physical epitome, so to speak, of all of this, right? Yerushalayim physically is in the center of the land. It's physically uniting the tribes, uniting Aseret HaShvatim with Malchut Yehuda, uniting the nation once again in a physical sense from its location, and also obviously, with the building of the Beit HaMikdash, that it's centralizing the worship of God and our relationship with God. And this is also, I didn't say this, but another one of the reasons of Hamakom Asher Yivchad not being called Yerushalayim at the time was they were a nation at the time before they went to Eretz Yisrael, and even when they went in, of watching all the other nations worshiping idols, choosing when and where and how to worship their gods. And God is saying, no, you worship how I worship, how I want you to worship, because we're developing this relationship together, and it's not you creating a God, it's about us creating a relationship. And I think that this is why the idea of needing connection and unifying us as a nation, and no matter how different the factions in Judaism is, it's still, we're all Am Echad, and we all have to, we're all here worried, especially here in Israel now, we're all worried about each other, worried about people around the country and the sirens, and hoping that everyone's okay. It doesn't matter if they're religious, not religious, Ashkenaz, Sephardic, it doesn't matter. It matters that you're a Jew, you're living in Eretz Yisrael. We need to all be connected and be safe and have hope that we could all, have sovereignty and peace, please God, very, very soon. So I wish everyone a happy Yom Yerushalayim, and please God, Besorot Tovot, good news, and everyone should be safe. And next week, actually, it's Shavuot on Monday, so there will be no class. So hopefully, we will see you after that. So happy Yom Yerushalayim, Chag Sameach, and Shavuot next week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.